Hi, everybody. Welcome. Took a little minute, a little magic to appear here. I am so excited to be sharing the stage with such a great group of people. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name's Ericka McCoy. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Resonate. Our Resonate Ignite platform is the leading AI-powered consumer intelligence platform that helps brands like the ladies you're going to hear from today drive growth and customer lifetime value. I am thrilled to be here and share the stage with all these great fintech leaders. But first and foremost, Cynthia Kleinbaum, who's the CMO at Moneylion. We're going to have a great discussion, a lot to talk about. But first, Cynthia, do you mind introducing yourself? You're
Sure.
relatively new to Moneylion, and your background is really impressive.
I feel like I don't know that you can say I'm a fintech marketer yet, but I'm in the process of becoming one. I joined Moneylion 2 months ago. I came from like many years. I'm not gonna say how many to not date myself, but many years of CPG and retail marketing experience. And I joined Moneylion 2 months ago to really bring the vision of the company to life, which is really cool and very inspiring. So I'll talk a little bit about that later.
Awesome. I think everyone's going to want to tune in and hear that. There's so much that we can discuss, and we only have a certain amount of time. So when it comes to fintech, there's so many places to dive in. But let's dive into a topic that everybody is near and dear to everyone's hearts, which is lowering acquisition costs by innovating the marketing funnel. What are your thoughts on this? You're getting started. You know that you need to make acquisition more efficient. Where do you begin when it comes to innovation?
Well, look, I'm joining Moneylion at a time when the size of the business, it's that sweet spot when just spending money lower in the funnel exclusively no longer works, which I think every startup goes through this moment in which you're just spending money in Facebook and Google, and suddenly CAC starts getting higher, and you start wondering, should I start spending more upper funnel? And how do I justify that full funnel approach? And on top of that, I'm joining Moneylion at a time when privacy is top of mind, when targeting people, it becomes harder and harder, and when really, like, we joke that we should just like have our customers pay directly to Google and Facebook, because all of our money starts going to acquiring people, and they start increasing the prices, and competition also increases prices of media. So for us, we had to really think hard about how can we acquire people without having to pay everyone else to be able to acquire people. And the company, not me, this was before me, but I'm here to actually bring this to life, came up with actually a business strategy that is entirely built to acquire customers at an efficient CAC or in an efficient way. The company made 2 acquisitions. So we bought 2 companies that, once fully integrated, are going to allow us to keep the acquisition funnel in-house. The first one is a content company called Malka. It's a content studio. They produce shows for YouTube. They have relationship with influencers, and we're bringing that content in-house. What that does, it's that we are creating a vertically integrated funnel or a vertically integrated company. People will come, our customers will come, and they do now, but it's going to be more and more. They're going to come to consume financial literacy content in our app. So instead of having to put the content in other places, and then when somebody is ready to make a financial decision, let's say that an influencer is telling you, there's this stock or there's this savings account that I have, and then you consume the content and go to a platform, to a fintech to take action, you're going to do that in our app. So that means, that's what I mean when I say financially integrated. The second acquisition that we did is Even Financial. Even Financial is an affiliate network that basically powers thousands of websites to give people loans and give people access to financial products. What that gives us is the ability to offer our customers really countless financial products, not just the ones that we are building ourselves. It's basically a marketplace approach that we see it a lot in retail, and we saw it in Amazon, right? Like Amazon started with books, but now they sell you everything. We are we're building a marketplace for financial services products. So then that allows us to keep people in our ecosystem and engage with them regardless of which financial product they need at a particular moment. So we don't have to be really at the bottom of the funnel trying to bring people that have intent. We can just keep them in with the content that we're creating, bringing them on a daily basis to consume content to our app. So one of our KPIs, which is very new for a financial services company, it's daily active usage, monthly active usage. We want people to come and engage with our app on a regular basis, which you don't see financial services looking at those KPIs. But if we have a marketplace of products that we can offer, then that allows us to really give them more reasons to engage with us. And that is already lowering our cost of acquisition. We're seeing it very quickly happen.
I mean, I think it's such a fascinating approach and certainly not a traditional approach, but it's really about engendering a relationship with your customers and this relationship is going to span a number of financial products, right? A number of life stages and all the things that are driving their financial life over the course of time. And it's purpose built for that. So it would seem one of the really big opportunities then is that understanding those customers. How have you started that? Have you approached understanding who are the best customers for this type of financial marketplace? How do you in the purpose of acquiring them, right? How do you understand them and what do they look like? How do you segment? Where are you in that part of the process?
I've never worked in a company with smarter data scientists and engineers, so I'm not going to take the credit for the work that they've done, but you have to understand that as a financial institution, we have access to very rich data on our customers because we know what they're spending money on. And not only that, we know how much money they're making, right? Like when I was in retail, it was the data that I had was how much money they're spending in my retailer, in my store, and what type of products they're consuming. Now I can see everything. I can see if they're getting a paycheck, how much they're getting, what they're spending their money on. So I have a lot richer data, and we have artificial intelligence built in the app to take you from one product to the other, to predict what is the next best action that you will take and put that content in front of you. And it's smart enough that depending on what you engage with, how much time you spend consuming content, like if you just skip, then we're not going to show you that right now. We have this, like it's so smart that, for example, we can see if you were hit by a fee. Let's say that you were hit with a late fee because you didn't have enough money in your account. Well, we can put in front of you content to help you budget so you're not hit with that fee. So the transactions that we see in your accounts actually power the content that we put in front of you.
Awesome. And when you think about who those ideal customers are and you think about starting to build that relationship with them, how do you describe them? How do you target them to get more like those customers that you already have?
I mean, we rely right now a lot on lookalikes, and we rely a lot on the platforms that everybody relies on. And we know demographics, we know a lot of the what, but really the question that we're always asking ourselves is the why. And as you probably know from the world that you come from, and I actually would love to ask you that question, like what can we do to better understand why people are doing what they're doing and not just the what, which is what we see. Because credit score, for example, every bank has your credit score. So if everybody's using credit score to target somebody with a product, there's no competitive advantage. So the old school data points are no longer valid. We have to use other data points. We have our own algorithms, but I know there's companies like yours that give companies data that they don't have access to. So I'm going to flip the camera and I'm going to ask that question to you.
Well, I think, it's a great question. And a lot of people coming from fintech, like you said, you have a ton of data. You actually have this blessing of having financial data about people. When does their paycheck come in and how much is it? And what are they spending it on? And in CPG and other industries, you lack that data. But I think it's a false sense of security because just because you know what they're spending it on doesn't mean you know why they're spending it or what else there is out there. And so I think now more than ever, as CMOs, we're looking at consumers who are very empowered buyers, right? They are, and they have very high expectations. They
Yeah.
expect that you know them, that you're going to deliver a personalized experience for them, that you're going to be able to meet them wherever they are, and especially with your objective of becoming this, financial hub, a partner for their future, you
Yes.
do need to understand them as holistic people. And part of the challenge is for marketers, and I've been around, probably longer than you, and I'm not going to talk about how long that is either, but we've been stuck with data that is either at the household level or is of, unknown origin. And we've been using that because that's what we've had, right? We buy third party data, or we depend on, social media platform data to create proxies for these segments that we build, and we take the time to try to understand them. I think with the shift in the market, with privacy, the departure of Google third-party cookie, right? Apple privacy, CCPA, GDPR, other laws, all of that is really breaking down all these sort of traditional data sources and the way that people have traditionally been able to get data. And so the people that are leading the effort, and so like you were saying, you guys use AI, which is awesome that you're running your own predictions. We also use the power of AI, and with technology today, if you've got a good identity graph, if you're able to really harness all the data that's out there to provide these rich profiles about individuals, now marketers have access to a much different robust set that's privacy safe, that is actionable, right? But is also rich and relevant. And I think it has to be up to date, because we're experiencing that as consumers today, all the things that are changing. And I'm sure that you are seeing these changes and realizing these are opportunities, right,
Yeah.
to offer different products and services. But there's not been a traditional data set that would allow you to take advantage of that, right? We can all intuitively say, wow, prices are going up. They're feeling that people are feeling the pinch, right, at the gas pumps. What can we do about it, right? Who are the people that are experiencing that? And then what can we offer them? And that's where data like our data set comes into place. It's very rich and relevant and up to date, and it's actionable for you to be able to take action of it. And it seems like Moneylion is really in a position to take that action.
Yeah.
So I think all marketers really, now as a CMO, we really have to get involved and take a look at what sources of data, our insights, our intelligence, our data scientists using, and are they taking advantage of everything that's out there? Of course, we need to know, and we have to have confidence that it's privacy safe, because that's, there's just simply no other way these days. But the potential to capitalize on the challenges that are happening is really, really powerful for me. And that's really what's, I think, been accelerated over the last 2 years. I don't know if that's what you see as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And I think it's funny, when I earlier in my career, I realized that even though we all thrive for customer loyalty, and we all say like we want our customers to really just interact with us, in this day and age, with these interactions happening digitally, the barrier for somebody to like just go and consume the same thing they're getting from you somewhere else,
Yeah.
it's just so low that if you're a commodity, then your competitive advantage should be, if like most products are commodities, right? Like there's small competitive advantages, but it's basically the same. It's how you brand it, is the story that you tell the customers and how you communicate with them. And I think that the more you know, the more you can adapt how you communicate. And what you were talking about regarding knowing more than just the what, but the why, the motivation, that is so powerful, because you can sell the same thing in different ways depending on what's the reason behind a person wanting something. Like a silly example, but let's say that somebody needs, in our case, somebody needs a loan, a quick loan, because they may have had an unexpected expense, or they may really just needed to pay for gas because gas prices are getting so much higher, or they may need it to give a down payment. It depends on their specific situation. And if we just communicate it with a blanket statement for everyone, it's just not going to land. So the more that we know about the person's motivations, the more we can target the marketing and just not even segmented, like really personalized.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's so interesting because I think as marketers, we intuitively go to, segmentation, micro segmentation. The more that we could describe someone, the better. But I think we've been limited in our ability to take action on that. So we've lived, if you will, with, broad segments
Yeah.
and you kind of look at the more detailed you get, but how am I going to target them? How am I going to find people like this?
Yeah.
Truly, and it's a lot of recreating, right? But I think today, using, and I'm probably better suited to use this information, than ever before. I think
Yeah.
it's so interesting to hear you talk about values, because I think one thing that we've been tracking is the consumer activist, and beyond even the consumer activist, which is someone who is going to respond to a brand based on the alignment of those brands' values to their values. There are even different flavors of consumer activists where some people will just advocate over social media or support or even cancel your brand in social media, and there's other people that will literally shop their values. And so are those consumers are those your customers?
Yeah.
Right? What's going to keep them loyal to you? And that's really, really important. But where do you can't just do a survey and get that data. Right? And people have overlooked, I think, that personal why do I make the decisions that I make? What's most important to me? How do I, and never, I think the last couple of years have really made things like personal value and brand value alignment even more important. It's just something we wouldn't have even talked about like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But that data is available. And I think Moneylion is in a position to not only use data like that, but use other data about what motivates these decisions, right? To then offer that right product with the right message. And to build the right content.
Totally. We actually have if you invest in Moneylion, you can have a managed investing portfolio, and you can create your portfolio based on your values, because we understand that more customers are putting their money where their mouth is.
How does that actually work? Then can you tell us a little bit more about that? That's so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, basically, like, download the Moneylion app, and you can go to the accounts, open an investing account, and as you are selecting, most investing accounts allow you to invest based on risk profile. And you can say if you're comfortable with risk, how comfortable you are with risk. We also allow you to say, I want companies that are really focused on X, Y, and Z from a values perspective. There's different parameters. It's very, very easy to use. Like, when I found out about that, I immediately moved my money to Moneylion, because it's really easy to use.
And I think it's so important. And that's the type of thing that creates customer lifetime value. That's the type of thing that, to your point, when switching costs are so low, it's a reason for us to stay. And the trick is then being able to identify the people that truly value that. And I think one of the things that's really exciting about our data set is we can identify people who care about certain charities. And there are differences. You can't just make assumptions like we would traditionally do, right? Well, if I have people who are, of a certain age group or a certain, generation, then they're going to want this type of charity. Or if I have people that have a certain ethnic background, they're going to want this.
Can't make those assumptions,
right? It makes no sense, and it's really not, and it's really false to use that as your thesis, right?
And you know what? I think more importantly, at least for the Moneylion business model, is that we can't assume that people are that we can categorize people by their financial situation, because financial situation changes. And in a span of 12 months, people that may need a loan twice, this is actually data that we have, people that may need a loan a couple of times a year to bridge a gap, a moment in which they couldn't afford their expenses, the other 10 months of the year, they actually have a surplus. And if you are a financial institution that categorizes people by they need a loan or they need investment advice, then you're missing the other times of the year when they actually are in a different situation. So for us to be able to create a platform that helps customers bridge gaps when they need, but also helps them build a foundation to invest, to manage their budget, to actually not need a loan next time. That's what's so powerful about Moneylion, that we actually, like, I would almost say, we want to be out of the loans business. This is like a dating business, right? If we do our job well, you are not going to need a loan all the time. If we help you build your credit score, if we help you invest through either managed investment or even crypto or active investment, if we give you the tools to create the foundation and to create the programs that will get you to have wealth later on, then you're not going to be coming to us for loans, which is fine. We don't need you to always come for us for loans. We need you to trust us. We want you to trust us that we're going to be with you building your future wealth together.
I love that sentiment, and I think it's such a great example for everyone in the audience of how the company is customer obsessed, right? To use kind of a coin phrase, but completely customer centric and data driven. And it's not that you're either customer centric or data driven. It's actually it's actually that combination of being super customer centric and harnessing the power of that data and that analysis that you described to recognize that someone who is in need of a loan is not necessarily somebody who fits into a box of this is someone who's going to always be in need of a loan, but rather that loan has a purpose to bridge a gap, which creates opportunities for you to offer them new products. It's so powerful and innovative. I love what you guys are doing. Right. Now, you talked about acquiring a content company, which again, I think for those in the audience must be like, well, geez, I mean, we're fintech. Why are we acquiring a content company? But content plays a really critical role in what you're trying to do. So talk a little bit about how you're using this content and how it connects maybe to the data and how this is going to streamline these buying journeys.
Well, I'm actually going to make a reference to retail, which is the world that I know more. And then I'll bring us back to fintech. If you think about Facebook, or if you think about Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, every publisher of content is trying to keep you throughout the transaction. So you see an influencer on Instagram and there's always like the shop button so you can buy there. They don't want you to leave, because shortening the content to commerce, the number of steps, making it easier for you is proven to be the recipe to keep people coming back, and also for the transactions to actually happen. Because who knows, right? Like if you see a pair of pants in Instagram and then like you really remember that you're going to buy them, but you may have bought them if you could have bought them right there. It's the same concept in fintech. But while Instagram and all the social media platforms are trying to get into shopping, all the shopping platforms are trying to get into content. So you see Walmart and Amazon, and this is something that works better, and they're much more advanced in Asia, where they have like live streaming. But it's the same concept of let's shorten the distance from the moment that you discover something to the moment that you act. Now, what is different about Moneylion, and why would anybody come consume the content in Moneylion? That is the big question that we're trying to prove to the customers that there's value, right? And the comparison that I would make is like just an analogy is, let's say that you are trying to lose weight and you have the Weight Watchers app. Who are you going to trust that is giving you more accurate advice about what you should be doing? Somebody in the Weight Watchers app that has access to what you're eating and how much weight you're losing and your body weight mass, whatever, like all that information, or a random in a platform that has no idea about you. We want to do that for financial services. Anybody can go and consume financial literacy content in social media platforms. There's nothing unique, right? Like the content may be similar, but we are going to put it in front of you because we know your specific situation. And there is so much content out there that if we don't know your specific situation, I mean, who knows? You may be seeing things that we may be giving you advice for investing when you actually what you need is a loan, or we may be giving you advice for insurance when what you're looking for is a mortgage. So it's really the data and content connection that makes the Moneylion value proposition for the customer so much more powerful. And on the other hand, there's also a better value proposition for the content creators. We want to bring to our platform the best, what we're calling finfluencers, that will actually create the most engaging content, that will engage with their audience on a personal level, and that will do it in Moneylion because A, their audience is more engaged, but B, they have more data on their audience and they can create content that is going to be more relevant for them. And C, they trust and they are able to monetize their content better. So it's a recipe of like, we have to make sure that the audience comes because there's something unique and special, but also that the content creators want to come. We have to do both at the same time.
I mean, it's it's not the conversation I think you would expect to have with the financial services leader. And I think it's so fascinating. And I just want to pull on one little thread that you mentioned, because there is a real gap in financial literacy, and
Yes.
closing that gap is really part of your mission, right?
Absolutely. That's the mission of the company. And it's everybody knows being poor is expensive, right? Like who gets all the information, who gets to know what they're supposed to do with their money? The people that already have money. And that's not fair. And it's not a zero-sum game where we have to make sure that those that don't have money never make money, so the ones that do have money make more money. We can all move up. So our mission as a company, and you hear it in every employee at Moneylion, when you ask them, why did you join Moneylion? It is really that passion and that mission of helping level the playing field. And it all starts with education, but it is hard to talk about financial services. It's not a sexy topic. It's not something that people talk to each other about. Maybe crypto, people do talk to each other about crypto. They say, I bought some Bitcoin, but really is anybody saying, I am in debt? Like my credit score just went down. These are topics that people are a little bit ashamed of, and they're also not sexy. So we're trying to change the conversation around money. We're trying to make it fun and we're trying to make it engaging, but we're also speaking to our audience in a way that it's empowering, that it's not daunting. We're removing the stigma. We're trying to remove the words that make it so hard, right? Like it's almost like the financial institutions used like created this glossary of words to use to make it hard for people to actually engage and manage their money themselves. And we are trying to remove that stigma. We're trying to remove the scary words and make it really engaging in a way that they're used to. Like people, we didn't have to do it. People are consuming financial literacy content in TikTok. So we are basically like just riding the wave and bringing the content the way that they're already consuming.
I mean, it's so, and people are consuming content, all kinds of content in TikTok. And to your point, when it comes to your finances, is that the best source to trust? Like, are you trusting the best source? And wouldn't you be a better source for that? And it's really about building that trust. I think one of the things that you've talked about is this customer centricity that seems to be woven throughout the whole company, driving the business decisions, driving acquisition strategy, driving obviously your team and the marketing and the brand. We talked about how consumer expectations are changing, and we talked about your background being in retail. It seems to me like you're perfectly suited to bring that customer centricity to life in the marketing organization. What other observations do you have about what's similar in retail, or maybe what needs to be brought from retail into fintech for the folks here in the audience?
I'm still learning about the differences, but I think the very fact that I made that change and that I went from being what you would call a retail marketer or a consumer marketer from a CPG background and then retail to fintech tells you how I think about marketing, which is we don't market things that we sell, we market the vision, we market the impact that we make in people's lives. And interestingly enough, Moneylion and Walmart have a very similar customer segment with very similar values, very similar approaches to life and family and how they spend their time, how they spend their money. So I would say there's more similarities than differences in terms of marketing a financial services company versus marketing a retailer, because we're marketing values, we're marketing that vision, not products. But in terms of what's different, I would say financial services is there's more intricacies and more rules about what we cannot do, because we can't really be giving financial advice as like we're not a financial advisor, right? So we can't be giving financial advice, and we have to be very careful on the recommendations that we make and what we suggest that people do. There's another difference is that even though there's thousands of products, it's a limited set, and it doesn't change as much as, let's say, in Walmart or in any retailer. The inventory is much broader. There's millions of SKUs, and it changes all the time, right? Like in a fashion retailer, every season it's a different, completely different portfolio. So being in a company that has a more narrow set of products that doesn't change that much, it actually allows you to, and it's allowing me to experiment a lot more. It's hard to experiment when the inventory is changing all the time. But here we can actually experiment more with the marketing funnel because the product is not changing that much. I find that really like super interesting to be able to play with the marketing funnel without thinking, well, was it the marketing effort or the fact that it was a totally different dress that we were selling?
Right.
So that's it. And then another similarity, and I would say this is for every industry, and it's a proliferation of subscriptions, and we're seeing it in retailers, and we're seeing it in fintech, and it's no wonder why everybody's creating subscriptions and memberships, right? Because it like locks people in, but also it gives you all the data you need to be able to personalize the experience better. So that's something that I'm seeing as a trend that people are launching. There's too many of them. I think some of them will work, some of them will not work, and it's going to, it's still, the jury is still out on what are people willing to pay for when it comes to a membership fee. Because I mean, I was at Walmart when we launched Walmart Plus, and I'm very passionate about being able to make the experience better by building a relationship through a membership. So we'll see what happens in fintech, but I'm seeing fintech companies creating subscriptions and memberships just like retailers.
Interesting. You know, you talked about experimenting more, and I think as a marketing leader, that's so important. How do you empower your team? Now, I know you've just gotten started, but how do you empower your team to think about that, experimenting more? You know, it's okay, right? We're such a KPI driven, it's a KPI driven world for us as CMOs, right? But how do you inspire them to say, you know what, experimenting is critical, and you build that into the DNA? Talk a little bit about how you've done that.
Well, I think the first thing that you have to create is an environment where people are empowered to take action and where it's okay to fail. Because if people don't feel like it's okay to fail and they're afraid of saying, we ran this experiment and it didn't work, then they're not going to do it, right? So everybody has to feel comfortable saying this is an experiment. Let's not risk everything on this experiment. We have the 70-20-10 rule when it comes to our investment. So 70% of our investment goes to the tried and true things that we know what's going to be the ROI, we know what's going to be the performance. 20% is spent on things that are newer, but we already know they're not going to totally flop. There's no risk, like high risk associated with that. And 10%, we may actually lose that money, right? But that is what then becomes the 20%, and what in the future is going to go to the 70%. Right. So we do it in a systematic way. We do it with data, and we do it empowering people to own their decisions.
So I know we're getting towards the end of our time, so I want to make sure that if there are any questions in the audience, I don't know if I'm going to open the chat and see if there's any questions in the audience. If the audience has any questions, please feel free to type your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to take your questions. While we're waiting for questions to come in, any advice for those entering the world of fintech marketing? I mean, obviously you did there. You said you're relatively new, but yes, as a CMO, what would your advice be to someone who's just getting started?
I mean, the advice is not just for fintech, but it's in general. Which advice would I give anyone entering a new industry? And the first one is be very curious. be willing to put in the time to learn about the product, because it's not trivial to switch careers, to switch industries, and you really have to put in the time. So that's number one. Number two, this is advice that I was given when I started my career in marketing. Understand that you are not the target audience. It doesn't matter if you actually consume the product. Do not assume that because you consume the product, then everybody is like you. This is very difficult to do, and everybody in the company does it, right? Like from a CEO to like at every corner of a company, if they are consumers, they think that their experience is what everybody else is experiencing. So don't assume that you know what your customers want, and make create the processes and create the tools that will actually give you the customer insights you need to take action. And then from a fintech perspective, I would say this is a very good time to move to fintech if that's a career that you want, because there's a lot of innovation happening. Like there's a lot of new companies doing really cool things in NFTs and crypto, of course, but like in general, there's a lot of innovation happening. And in terms of deciding which company to join, make sure that you believe in the mission, make sure that you understand the financials of the company, because we don't live in the world that we used to live in, which was we'll figure out how we make money later on. Doesn't exist anymore. Now you have to make sure that you know how your company is planning to make money, so you're not out of a job in 6 months. And believe, like join a company where you believe in the leadership, where you believe in the how they're making decisions and in the team, because I think there's a lot of companies that will not survive. So you have to make sure that even if it doesn't survive, you believed in it and you put all you had in it, and you didn't just thought it's cool, I'm gonna put that I have crypto or fintech in my resume, but really join a company that you believe in. I think there's a question here. How has your marketing KPIs changed given the macroeconomic climate? Well, because of the climate, our focus is much more on breaking even than on fast growth. So we're being more careful on how we spend our money. That said, it's interesting because a lot of companies have taken money out of the system. So our ability to acquire customers has gotten even easier or better. Our CACs have gotten better because there's less competition. So we have to take the opportunity to spend the money when everybody else kind of left. That said, we are being more careful with it. And then the other KPI that I talked about, we are not just talking about how many accounts do we have, what the revenue per account. We're actually looking at how many people are coming to consume content on a monthly, weekly, daily basis. How much content are they consuming? And the third one is we're paying much more attention to cross-sell, because in this environment, as I said, there's like loyalty is super important. Getting people to engage with you with more than one product is super important, and we have more than one product. So we want our customers to actually be able to benefit from everything that we have to offer, not just one side of the business.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating, and the ability to actually manifest those journeys, right, between to actually identify opportunities and cross-sell and upsell to drive that loyalty. It's data that's available to you, and augmenting that with additional data that has describing maybe what in the macro environment is impacting that consumer. Being able to harness that and then act on it is so critical, right? It's really that agile marketing approach. So I think that we're getting to the end of our, I'm going to see if there's one more question. Hold on. I think we're getting to the end of our time. Yes, it looks like, okay, so run it. We may have time for one more question. So
I don't think there's one more question. Is there?
I think the next folks are coming up and they're not quite here yet. So we might have time for one more question, or I don't know, Sylvia, are we on time, or have we done a good job of staying on our time here?
Yes, you're on time. Thank you for the session. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to join us.